Good afternoon, everyone. If you were here on my last stream, which just ended, I'm back. I've been gone all of 5 minutes? No, I'm kidding. So today I'm going to be joined by Anne, Virginia Warrior Mom, again in our series on defunding ed.gov, otherwise known as the Federal Department of Education. And she will be joining me soon, but because she is a busy mom, she has some child care issues to attend to and will be with us very, very shortly. But I just wanted to give you a quick update on what we're talking about today. Before I do that, typical housekeeping things. If it's your first time here, please consider subscribing to the channel to get more information about what's going on in schools today, in education, K all the way through college, pretty much, public, private, charter, doesn't matter. We cover it all. And I try to cover not just the specifics of what's going on in schools at every level, but also why is it happening and what can we do about it? I know people are asking me, can you give me more on the what can we do about it side? But honestly, knowledge is power. And one of the things you can really do about it is inform yourself. Make sure you really know and really understand the snake oil you're being sold and, whether it is snake oil or not. Being able to tell the difference between something that will benefit your child and something that will harm your child is pretty central to figuring out what to do about it next. And that's not about scaring you. That's about informing you. So that's the first thing you can do. Information, knowledge is power. So when we are doing this series where we're talking about defunding ed.gov, it's because we want people to understand what the Department of Education does. A lot of people kind of think it's one of those things. I think I know what the Department of Education does, but actually now that you mention it, I'm not 100% sure, right? Or they might think of it as, well, that's there to guarantee that all American kids or all American students in schools and education get, they're treated fairly and it's equal, and to make sure that it's all constitutional and all that kind of stuff. And they don't really realize the massive budget they have ostensibly for that purpose. And they don't look into whether they actually do deliver on that promise. Another thing that people don't necessarily consider is who's getting that money and why are they getting it? And is it really for benefiting the children at the other end? Or are there a whole lot of adults in between who are benefiting from all that tax money? And finally, I think there's an assumption that it makes education better. And if we didn't have it, that bad things would happen. Bad things would happen to education, something terrible. But people forget it's not as old as I am. It's only been around since 1978. And while it is now a massive bureaucracy employing untold numbers of people and impacting many, many jobs, it is not benefiting the results. We are not seeing results. In fact, I recently took a look at our overall reading and math scores across the years since we got the Department of Education, and we are flatlined at below average. And that's having come down. So in other words, things were better before the Department of Education, and we've now been doing consistently worse, and we're consistently not getting any better. We're staying at a low level, and in some places going down. So let's welcome Anne. She has just arrived.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Sorry.
I've just been kind of giving people the lowdown on why we're even doing this about the Department of Education in the first place and why we're talking all this stuff. So I think I covered that. And I've got all of our materials for today lined up. Guys, our show today is going to be about the SEL. And we're going to focus in on a couple of specific, what do you call them, companies or providers of SEL type of stuff. And we're going to show you sort of what Anne found, where she found it, why it's bad for your kids, and then how much money, how much the money is going towards this, so you can start to understand why defunding this will have a big impact on what time and money is wasted, and not to mention the harm that's being done to your kids. If they don't pay for it, they can't get it, they can't harm the kids using this stuff. So there we go. All right, I've got everything loaded. What would you like me to go to first?
Let's start back for people that are just joining us, and yes, I have weird eardrums. I have to wear them upside down. I don't know why. But the yellow one.
Got it. Okay, let me pull that up over here and share my screen. Hopefully we're this is a little bit of a work in progress, our whole presentation style. So I think we're getting better at prepping for this. Okay.
So this one is called now you have 3 manuals, ESSER 1. 2 is the one we went over the first time. That's called the Roadmap for Reopening. That's the one where the tides turned. And then these, this one's called Strategies for Using American Rescue Plan Funding to Address Impact of Lost Instructional Time. Because that's where all this money for SEL is hidden, is in your county or wherever you are. Anytime that you see an allotment for like instructional time or that's where this money has gone.
Can I just interject real quick?
Yeah.
Do you recall as a mom being told they weren't going to lose instructional time?
No, and I especially wasn't told that it was only certain children that were going to be impacted by COVID, because I had a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4th grader home. And as far as
I just remember them saying it wasn't going to be a big impact, that kids were resilient, and it was going to be just, it was going to all be good. It was going to be fine.
Yeah. No big deal. We're just going to shut down. And then it was, this is when I was still in bliss, like life's good. It's just no big deal. Like, but yeah, no. And
okay.
So this is one of the ones. And then there's another one, that literally spells out, like, it's the one we talked about. It says, we don't yet know the impact COVID will have on sexual assaults in school. Like, it's literally mapped out, pretty much anything that could go wrong.
Okay. Anything in here we should be scrolling
this
to?
One, is, I think it was, let's see, 14, I think, is where you'll find CASEL.
Okay. I'm going. Cruising along to page 14. And here we are at page 14.
Hold on.
The frequently asked questions on the elementary school emergency relief program.
No, hold on.
Sorry. Do you think I could do a find, like a search?
Here. No, I'll just see what I texted you. God, I can't wait to get my own.
Page 11 has something, CASEL School Guide.
Yes,
there it
CASEL.
is.
So right there, I think pretty much everybody should know who CASEL is. And it's, when we talk about SEL and why it is CRT especially, is that CASEL in 2020 rebranded, if you want to call it. I don't think SEL belongs.
It was 2017.
Well, see, I found different things. Like I was under the impression it was 2017 also, and then
that's when they changed their wording. The wording,
yeah. And then I questioned, and I found so it's in there. But yeah, I even double checked it today, and I thought it was 2017 also. But is when transformative SEL. My opinion is that you don't direct anything to a group of students that should be an individualized, or especially when it's teachers involved, especially emotional issues. But is when it strictly became transformative SEL, which is, it talks about social justice. It's equity. Let me read this.
Well, it specifically says the collective. So the difference then, when you go, there's even a chart that they've produced that shows the different phases that SEL has gone through over the years. And when you get to transformative, you're now so far away from the original purpose of individual remediation for kids who are struggling with emotional, management and things. And you're all the way over to the child knows their sort of activist purpose, like they're fully awakened to the oppression in the world, and now they are choosing, they're not just aware of it, they're not just an ally, they are actively engaging in civic engagement, they're taking action. So you'll start to see the word action or engagement. So when you see the word engagement, parents, and you think like, oh, that means they're liking their lessons and they're participating in class. No, engagement means activism.
Yes. And that's what, so I tell people, because we have an education summit here in Virginia on Friday, and I'm putting together because we're going through the Department of Education here, trying to make our new government accountable for what's in there. And one of the superintendents, the new superintendents who's anti-CRT, will be on the panel. And so they don't really want me blowing up SEL all that much, but so that's another story.
Right.
But so they're allowing me to put together one page front and back, and they're going to print it on, I mean, how do you sum this up? So,
SEL is tough. What's anything else in this doc? So we see that it's
CASEL.
CASEL.
I mean, the fact that CASEL, now you have to remember, is that CASEL has been around since 94, I believe.
Yes.
It's the same. ESEA was brought back. You know, SEL has been around as long as Common Core had. And
look, it says states and districts may use ARP ESSER funds to provide educators with the supports and professional development they need to integrate social and emotional learning into their practice and address trauma and loss resulting from the pandemic, and on the most effective evidence-based strategies. Oh, we got to talk about that, right? To re-engage and support students in their learning. Additional strategies to support the social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs of students can be found in volume 2. But here's the problem. First of all, do we have
K through 12? Remember, like this is 5-year-olds.
Right. And so how are we re-engaging a 5-year-old? Anyway, so they don't really do a good job in these documents of showing how they arrived at their starting point. So what you'll notice when you look at documents that around education where they say, this is what we're going to do and it's going to be awesome, and they tell you, they imply the why. They imply it to re-engage them, to address learning loss, to do this, but they never show you data to quantify the learning loss, to quantify the trauma, to say, this is how we know that this problem exists. This is how we know the shape and size and scope of the problem. And this is how we know that this is the solution to the problem. They never, ever tell you that. They start from the position that we're solving the problem. You can say thank you. By the way, we need more money to do that thing.
Yes. So CASEL is a very important piece because I went down the, and I'm scared I'm going to get canceled for this, the Bill Gates and Melinda, the whole of, I just searched K through 12 for 4 hours the other night. And we have 14 contracts between the web apps, Google, the Chromebooks, the software, everything that falls under social emotional learning in this county. Every single one of them was either funded through by CASEL, Bill Gates. It wasn't even 7 degrees of separation between. So everything is, when you have a company whose research that it works is by CASEL, the people who are the umbrella of everything, you can't have SEL. So that's hugely, because we're going to talk about second step. And that's the main one, because that's the one that what I'm finding, especially here in Virginia, and I think it's pretty much everywhere, is that second step is the biggest, and that's who everybody is using.
So just so people understand the structure, the hierarchy. Okay, so you've got CASEL is kind of like the national association that decides what SEL kind of should be, and this is where they get funding from Bill and Melinda Gates and all these kind of things.
Right.
They have their own, curricula and services and so forth. However, they also put their little rubber stamp on things like this whole strategy packet. They put the rubber stamp on things like second step. So they're all in alignment. It's not like if you see Panorama Ed or you see another company coming in or a nonprofit coming in saying we're doing SEL, you need to understand it's still falling under CASEL's definition of what SEL is, which at this point in time is the transformative version of SEL, where we are addressing all the children as if they have trauma, all the children as if they need emotional management training, and training that, quite frankly, manages their emotions. It's not they learn how individually to do it. It's the school and the other people and the other kids are making them aware of what their boundaries may and may not be to be part of the collective properly. So when we talk about CASEL and then we show you second step, just understand that they're in line with each other. It's just like Virginia has chosen second step, as have 20 some odd or 30 states. There's different states use different things, different programs. Your state may use some of these.
Everyone outside of second step that I looked up, because they even produce a list, CASEL does, of who's CASEL approved. And when Chesterfield County put out the for the people to apply for these contracts, it said in there must be CASEL aligned. like
Yep.
right there. Like you can't, I can't imagine. So every program is going to have to be CASEL aligned. And so
Right.
I tell people, imagine like having a Patriot American curriculum, and you have one, let's say Donald Trump is the man funding this one class that's being forced on all of America. And if there's subsidiaries of it, it all still links back to Donald Trump's How to Be a Great American class.
Right.
Like,
in fact, I halfway believe that different companies produce these different things just to make it seem less like the Borg is swallowing us whole. Like I'm cynical even about that.
If you Google lens, like the CASEL lens of equity, you have different company. It's the same. You can put it in different colors. You can, it's what I found with these assessments is that it's by a different company. It's the same thing. Like,
yeah.
So people had a problem with, standardized tests. Like you can't fight about one standard test when you have one company providing the same screwed up curriculum to the entire nation. Like,
exactly.
So second step, and I didn't realize this either, but Committee for Children is a nonprofit. Now, this is a global nonprofit, like kind of like it's up there with Planned Parenthood worldwide. I mean, it's a global nonprofit that started out child sex abuse, but it migrated to social emotional learning. So Committee for Children is the nonprofit that funds the for-profit social emotional second step. So that's Committee for Children. And if you're ever bored one night, go down that Twitter rabbit hole, and you can find. I mean, you'll find Ibram X. Kendi. You'll have all. I mean, it's the who's who of how all this ties together.
Right.
But
there's
that's
Committee for Children.
Correct.
Brought to you by
Committee for Children. Yeah. Yep. And so you'll always. I mean, you'll even find if their logos are linked. And so if you pull up Committee for Children, they proudly are funded by Bill and Melinda Gates, Chan Zuckerberg.
Let me see. This had here Committee for Children. This is just news. News from Committee for Children releases new social emotional. This is May 3rd.
One that was released yesterday. Oh, okay.
This is just yesterday, May 3rd.
Yes,
new
I saw
social emotional learning materials for educators to build an authentic culture of equity and belonging among staff and students. How authentic is it if you have to go buy a thing to create it? That doesn't seem authentic. See, authentic to me is like it occurred organically, naturally out of just its own inner, not like, here, use the stuff in this box and you will magically be authentic. Schools can improve learning outcomes and create more equitable learning communities. What does this even mean? Building a climate where everyone feels their background, where everyone feels, how are we gonna measure that? Their backgrounds and social identities are valued. And what if they're not?
Whose value?
And whose value, whose degree of value? How are we measuring it? How are we going to ever know that we were successful? And what if somebody goes, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be mean to you. I'm not going to call it out, but I just don't value your background.
Right.
And I love you, but I don't value your ethnic background. It's of no consequence to me. I'm completely indifferent to it.
Sane people would say, cool, that's what equality is. That's what civil right. I mean, that's what humans strive to be. Is if you want to talk about it and it's important to you, we can talk about it. But if you don't, we don't have to. Like,
hey guys, guess what? There's second step for adults.
Yeah.
So in case you reached adulthood and you don't fit in, then you can go take this class. But no, I mean, I think it's actually a really important point that we are being sort of brainwashed into the belief that we're supposed to value all these little intrinsic qualities. We're supposed to value the same things about others that they choose to value about themselves. It's the whole validate me, validate me, validate me. I'm sorry. Not being a jerk to you, not being discriminatory against you, and treating you with decency, kindness, respect, and, within the law and respecting your boundaries and stuff does not extend to me valuing what you demand that I value. Right. If you're saying have my values, I'm probably going to go, no.
Yeah.
Unless I already do.
That you say that, they're going to say, that's your privilege showing That's your fragility. I mean, they start to pull out these words that mean these
It's
nonsensical.
exclusive. It's
And
not inclusive. It's exclusive because there's a whole part that says we don't value you if you're these things.
Right. If you don't agree with our collectiveness,
right,
because then that's your privilege. And if you don't know what that is, then that definitely means you have it. And so I tell people all the time, and I'm like, logic will tell you is that if you don't judge, I mean, we all judge, but if you don't look at another skin color and are like true white supremacy, like in the term, like Hitler, like if you don't want to aggressively go after that strictly because of their skin color and do things to hurt other people, like is being done every single day to these children. I don't even care. The adults can deal with it. They're adults, but the children is, if you can't see that that's what's going on, that I don't know how else to describe racism to you. Because somebody decided to redefine it doesn't make it truth.
Right.
Like,
and they keep talking about things like, I'm so motivated by the power of social emotional learning and the many ways it can be applied to build more effective learning environments. What's an effective learning environment? Effective for what? Now, if I ask 10 parents, if I just pull 10 random parents of school-age kids off the street, let's assume they're all like, send their kids to school and expect them to learn to read, write, and do math. Okay. They're not complete deadbeat parents. All right. I bet if I did that and said, what would you define as an effective learning environment? You'd probably say something along the lines of the one in which my child knows more and can do more tomorrow than they could today. They're actually learning and acquiring skills, and they don't feel like absolute crap about themselves, and they are making some friends, maybe they're not, whatever, but they feel okay. And they're learning more to each day. Okay. But they're not telling us what effective means to them. And then furthermore, they say research indicates that teachers who treat students' identity as an asset. Why? Why is your identity? And first of all, identity is chosen. It's not something you're just born with.
Not anymore.
And even if it were something you were born with, why is it an asset to be Black? Why is it an asset to be female? Why is it an asset to, we don't dare say it's an asset to be male, right?
Yeah.
So this doesn't even make any sense. The only way that it's an asset is if you are trying to form little identity cliques and identity groupings for the purpose of us, them, like out group, in group dynamics. It doesn't have an asset in a pluralistic society where we are equal under the law. It's actually a liability to form identities based on what makes us different.
Yes. And I have expressed to people in every way that I can possible how, like, I'm with you now. Like, I will continue fighting because but I tell people, especially after the comprehensive sex education that, believe it or not, I wasn't even really aware of, that I get them out, like, at all costs. Like, K through 10, they call it family life here in Virginia. They want to teach your kindergartner about inappropriate touching. Now, I know how Virginia feels about the state of education right now. Why would you want someone else that is an educator, after everything we know about this state in particular, I'm going to speak on, teaching your 5-year-old about inappropriate touching? And then I think it's first or second, they're going to start teaching them about what actual body parts are, how babies are made. Like my brain, I mean, to actually sort through that stuff, and then to find a second step, if you want to, an actual kindergarten assignment about touching, inappropriate touching.
Oh yeah, I think I have that. But before we show that, can I just refer people to this one line here? So these are, I guess, the modules, the SEL focus, and they have this one I wanted to call to your attention: resilience and efficacy, coming soon. Explore strategies to bolster collective resilience. I don't want to know what that is. All right. So now you want me to go to the pictures.
But this, I was looking stuff up because, like I always do, and it said 7 hours ago, because I was looking for the old new definition of transformative SEL, and it said 7 hours ago, second step, and I was like, huh. And that's why I know that somebody else is speaking through me when that kind of stuff pops up to me that 7 hours ago, because I guarantee you nobody else knows that second
Was
step.
it this?
I was looking for that.
Oh, okay. You were looking for this. Okay.
And that's when the new one that came out yesterday popped up.
Okay.
But
so
that's
new.
that's what they did on that's what they added.
So they added the integral part because they added, all young people, healthy identities, achieve personal and collective goals, and to make caring decisions. So it's not enough to just make decisions that don't hurt people.
Caring.
We're going to prioritize that and somebody else gets to define what that looks like. What does caring look like? I'm pretty sure we each have different definitions of caring. Well, I'm looking at these. You sent me a bunch of images. Which one do you want me to open? Was it in here? The touching one.
While we're on the subject of, it should be, pull up the one with 3 little kids right there, because this is under the VDOE, under the K through 4 flashcards for SEL. Now,
sorry, I'm trying to make this.
So right here, I know in my county we have this little what equity is. But it's not cute little cartoon children on these wood crates. It's little small people and then tall people. And so this is equity. So when they talk about fair, now this is from the VDOE themselves. It's the same little thing. So you're implying that one child that's born shorter, who is going to be this historically marginalized child, and then you're going to have the, say, white child who is born taller. So by their birth, the smaller child who's historically marginalized gets more in life than the child who, remember, is white and born taller. They get nothing. So that's why you have to understand. I looked through it and then I was like, wait a minute. And that's because we have had arguments at school board meetings about this wood box. I said, this is discrimination.
Right. And, see, the problem is with the fence. But what they do, the premise.
They have to look over the fence.
The premise that they put forward that nobody ever questions is that the fence is there.
Correct.
So the fence is an arbitrary obstacle that affects some people more than others. But they have not established that in the public school system, this arbitrary obstacle exists for all the children. And so therefore the so-called privileged ones are doing great getting around the arbitrary obstacle. They literally treat intelligence. And like that, you go to school and you pick things up. You're a really good math student or whatever, you pick it up. They're claiming that somebody else, not necessarily being as good at math, has an invisible fence up against their math ability, and that all they need is more boxes to stand on, and suddenly they'll do math better. That's not the case. They completely reject human nature. They completely,
the boxes are.
Yeah, they reject reality. This is a rejection of reality, and they're saying that in our school, there's this arbitrary wall that doesn't affect these groups of kids.
Right.
But it definitely affects these groups of kids. They never tell you why. And they also don't even tell you what the wall is, where it is, what it looks like. It's this thing called power and privilege. Power and privilege. It's like out there in the ether.
Right.
But it only affects some kids.
If they were actually doing like what they talk about, like socioeconomic, okay, I can guarantee you they're not pulling each and every child's actual, like they could, the amount of data they're collecting, but we'll get into that later. They could pull, like, if you wanted to talk about, like, because they talk about like socioeconomic stat. No, they're doing it strictly based on skin color. But I say, are you giving these children actually something more? No, they're not. What they're giving them the same thing, and they're giving everybody else less. So this is why I say, congratulations, everybody wins a trophy, nobody gets an education. Because these people, if this was true and these historically marginalized children were actually getting more, then I might, for 1/2 of a millisecond, buy that it's not the devil's work or whoever you want to say. But these children that they're saying are born small are not getting that milk cart. They're actually getting a hole. They're like, the taller child's getting put into a hole to equal out the child that's still not getting anything.
Right.
And so that's
exactly
I've talked to teachers who have been told by principals, just push them through. That's not how is that serving any child? But that's what this stuff is paying for. And in the meantime, you are teaching children to value themselves, that their actions have no accountability. And then they're going to go out into the real world. And who knows what that's going to mean in a couple of years. But in the real world I grew up in, a cop is not going to care when he pulls you over if it was fair or not. Like, you're going to be in jail. Like, it's
right. I did find the touching thing, if you want to show it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I found that this morning, and because, you know, Kelly talks about, and even Glenn Beck I watched today, he talked the triangle, you know, the triangle of, you've got, you know, CRT, and then you've got, you know, comprehensive sex ed, and then SEL is like the delivery system, which I've always known that. But the comprehensive sex ed was foreign to me. You know, I kept seeing like the gender unicorn or the genderbread person, and I was like, I've never heard of that here in Virginia.
Right.
But
now this is so they're doing this in kindergarten through 5th grade.
That isn't, yes, a kindergarten assignment. Now, the ones that I know that I've shared all over everywhere was off of the VDOE 2020. They call it family life still, but it is, they are doing it in kindergarten, and it currently in Virginia, like kindergarten, they are teaching about touching. I don't know any parent that was ever made notified by any county here that like 6th grade was not the starting, that they had even implemented it in elementary school. So yeah, another wonder that James Lane slid by all of us. But so second step is SEL, but here you have why is SEL have touching in it now, which is where
and if you look at the content of the lesson, this is why parents will get kind of lulled in, I think, is that it says 3 steps to help parents teach kids about their body. Now, if they handed this out as an optional handout that parents could take or leave, and then they could decide, you know what, I know my kid, and I know my kid is ready for this conversation in kindergarten, or I know my kid is ready in 2nd grade, or whatever, that is up to you. You're the parent. You're talking about something very private. But if this is given as an assignment, it's the school stepping into the home and saying, your kid is going to be in a position where it's like, if you don't go over this assignment with them, the kid's going to feel like you didn't do something you were supposed to do. Whether they're really ready for it or not is not something for the kindergarten teacher or even the elementary school teacher to decide. Different kids at different levels. Imagine if you have special needs child, a kid, you know, I mean, they're just different kids have different degrees of, I don't know, sensibilities about these things. There's some kids in kindergarten, you could have this conversation, it'd be no big deal. Right. Other kids would be like,
I don't have those children, you know, so as a parent, like I always, but the thing is what's even more when you understand is that this, like in Virginia, you have to have that their opt out, that's the one opt out they send all year is for family life. And I can guarantee you, if a kindergarten parent in the state of Virginia got a kindergarten opt out letter, I would know about it. Virginia would know about it. So the fact that what I found that the VDOE has implemented, and that this is it's hidden in SEL. They don't send out SEL opt-outs. They exist.
So what you're saying is, while this looks like an activity, it says even free, 2nd step free activity, it is being given to the students as an assignment.
What I'm saying is that family life in Virginia, you have to notify parents to opt out. So if this is part of the family life curriculum, which it is for K through 10 in Virginia, not a single parent in elementary school was ever given a family life opt out form. So that's where this is that they're hiding it in social emotional learning, because you don't have to opt your kids out of social. If you know about it.
So then for transparency purposes, the point is that the parents don't necessarily know if the teacher's discussing this in the class, because there's no way to know. Okay. So that's the thing. Because I noticed there was a comment saying it looks like something for parents, not for teachers. Yes, it does look like that. And what we're finding is they're doing a really good job of hiding things by saying, you know, it's for parents, or calling it free. So when people see it on a website someday, they're like, what's the big deal? It looks like they just a handout they give to parents. And the parents have to think, wait, did I get this as a handout? Did this come home to me as a handout? What they're doing is, like she said, they're putting it into SEL, which is in like now in any old random class in the day. You don't get to opt out. You don't even get to see what your kid is learning. And the teachers are using these activities with your children when they should be parental activities.
Correct. It's like the now famous, infamous drug assignment that the county could not tell me whether my child had or not taken, whether it was a homework assignment or an in-class assignment, and then it disappeared. Is that the transparency on all of this is, it's what are you hiding is the big question. And that's the thing, is that transparency in education is non-existent. And if a parent asks for a curriculum or what is this assignment, they should not be told FOIA it, which is what I've been told. It should be readily available if you're not hiding anything. And the expectation that parents should know to go through their child's Chromebook, like I have to do every day, every 2 days, and go through every single thing. It's like the books, like, oh, well, you can tag your kid not to check out these books. Do you know how many parents do you know that go in and search and to tag out of 5,500 books you don't want?
Yeah, nobody does that. But this is another second step activity. Notice this one. This is kindergarten grade 5, but this is for the students explicitly. It takes a village to solve community problems. In this exercise, students can find ways to work together to address local issues. They're 5 or 6 or 7, even grade 5 when they're 10 years old, roughly, right? How much, I mean, okay, let's take a look at what they're saying. Whoa, conflict resolution talks between countries?
Local election issues.
They're little kids. If you were telling me, like, how do we clean up the mess in the gully over there that's got a lot of trash, we can go pick up with bags. Like, this is what we did when we were in elementary school. We do it like little environmental cleanup projects. We would go like read books to people in the old folks home or something like that, maybe. But this is okay. Conflict resolution talks between countries and local election issues. I'm sure they know so much about taxation and all that. Okay, good.
And this is like what I tell people is why I'm so passionate about this, is that these are children, is what I keep telling people. Children. They have this one tiny little window to go to school, to play in the sandbox, to not worry about life. If you choose to pass adult issues on to your child, that's your decision as a parent.
Yeah.
It's not public education's job. And then it's especially not public education's job to then hide it so that parents don't know it's being done. Because if there was full transparency, we're doing this, all of this right here, we are now doing, and here's all the opt-out forms, that would be a different story. But when you're doing something that's completely not appropriate for children who will never get innocence back in their life, and you're hiding it, and you're getting federally funded for it, that's when the snowball of who doesn't see a problem.
And then when they have the arrogance to say multiple times, you'll see Brandy Weingarten and all these people saying, parents think they, even Joe Biden, like, parents think they own their kid. Parents think they control their kids. Parents think they should have a say. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's a little bit more audacious to say that the government thinks it should decide what my children, because remember, not how my children learn to read or do math, or that they should learn to read and do math. I mean, I think we can all agree those are probably important things. So we're not talking about that. Right. We're not talking about deciding whether they learn to read or not. We're talking about whether they learn all these attitudes about their role in society, their obligation to the collective, their obligation to each other, the boundaries they're allowed to have and that are, no, that's mean, can't do that. That's actually for the parents, and quite frankly, after a certain age, for the child. Once the child is of a certain age, you start to get to middle school, and even the parents' influence starts to wane, and your child is going to start becoming who they're going to be as a young adult, deciding what boundaries they want to have, what kind of friends they want to have, what their worldview and attitudes are going to be. That's how you develop your identity, and you start to form your own opinions, and they may end up being very different from your parents. But that should, if you want to really be respectful of the child, that should be their decision.
Right.
I'm not saying it should be mine. 100%, you know, as a kid, that's why I have yours, you know, 0 through 7 or 0 through 10. That's my one chance to be like, hey kid, I'd really like you to, you know, value these things. That at some certain point, they're going to decide if they want to or not, but it's definitely not for the school to do. It is definitely not for the state to do.
No, it's, and like, I didn't understand, you know, and there was an example in the, for second graders, I think, that in the VDOE family life book, it starts talking about they're going to start teaching them how not just their parents, but the community and how many people are responsible for their upbringing. It was, I think, a screenshot I sent you, but
yeah, let me see. Okay, I'm going to bring that back up because you might be able to spot it on all the screenshots that I saved, because I put them into kind of a one place, and maybe you'll be able to spot it. Do you see it someplace in here?
I didn't miss it. I sent you a lot of stuff.
You sent me a lot of stuff.
One other way.
That's what I have for screenshots.
I may not have sent it. Let's pull up the let's see, the one that has down bottom right corner, male, female, binary.
This one? Hang on a second.
It's got the little Scantron bubbles.
Oh, I'm clicking the wrong screen. I'm a dork. This one?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I'm clicking over here like it's real.
My daughter's 11. I have already done PPRA. I've already opted her out of everything, including social emotional learning. And then I open up her Chromebook on Friday and I see life skills. That's another one of those buzzwords, parenting to remember. Anything like life skills revolved. And right off the bat, they asked my 11-year-old if she was non-binary, which sent me through the roof because.
Well, this is also a little dot thing. It's going into a computer. And,
yes.
And it's in a Google Doc. And that means that whatever your 11-year-old is reporting here is going into some data mining program.
Yeah. If your child has a Chromebook, I don't know what the rest of the world uses, but that's just a laptop that is county issued that they are learning from, whatever software they have put installed into that computer, not only that, but that computer has an RF code chip in it. So they can literally track your child. We use Google Slides. We have a contract with Google. So Google Slides, Google Docs, all that stuff, like this is a Google form. That's what teachers use to test now. So if your kid is clicking a button in Google form, and where's it going? Like, and that's where what is the most disturbing part is they try to tell me that only school officials, and they have vetted the sources. And really, you think I want Bill Gates having my kids? Now, by the time that, what are the repercussions is what nobody thinks about, is that by the time if I didn't know about this, that they were to graduate and they were to go apply for a job, because she spilled ones out before that said, do you think it's okay to commit a crime for the good of society? Or, you know, it's this whole different, but it's also mining on parents. One of the other ones I sent you is, how many parents do you live with? Like, do you live with one parent, two parent? They've asked before, do you feel like you have proper parent, you know, responsibility at home? And then they ask questions about, do you eat? How many times a day do you eat? It's one of those things that, like, if you weren't aware, you'd be like, they care about no, they're data mining on parents. Like they're checking out the welfare of children. It is over and over. This is probably the fourth one this year alone that I've pulled up with these same exact questions. And so
why do they go? It's like, I didn't change from being a female and a male. Oh wait, I did. I mean, what are they waiting for?
Because
like,
they
are they
want
going to keep? Is it really going to be different?
It's before and after, essentially, is what it is. Like, this is, I guess, the wrap up, the end year one, to see if you've changed. Like, but it's, yeah, that's the extremely, you know, you go through and you read and it's like, you know, cool people smoke, not a big deal, you know, but then it kind of ebbs and waves in between, like what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. But I flew off the handle as soon as I got this. And but it's just the steady stream of understanding. Hold on, I'm going to jump off real quick if you want to.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll try to show people a couple other things too.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to go attend to that, and then okay, she'll be back. While she's gone, I want to show you guys something that was also in the stack of stuff, to use Rush's old term, that she gave me that really kind of blows my mind. This is from another company, Aperture. I think it's a company, but student behavior isn't always what it seems. So, we talk about SEL and how it's kind of going to be everywhere. It's going to be all the classes, especially in elementary and middle school. But once they get up to high school, they have, their specific classes that have to focus a little bit more on content, supposedly. The SEL tapers a little bit in terms of, these kinds of lessons, but that's a lot of years for the kids to be approached through this kind of lens. Now, let's take a look at this. Student behavior isn't always what it seems. Now, let me say, as a former teacher, I agree. And we shouldn't be prejudging our students. And if we see children who are, looking that their behavior's off or whatever, that's something to look into. But what I don't like is they're showing examples that are teaching, ironically, implicit biases to the teachers that the child is having some kind of trauma or some kind of problem at home. And instead of just saying, they're acting out about something, they're not inherently, irresponsible, lazy, careless. I mean, you shouldn't do that. I hope we can agree. You shouldn't just judge your student when they're acting out in these ways that it's like a character flaw. Okay. That is rarely the case. Sometimes it's the case, but extremely rare. Usually there's some kind of other reason, but guess what? Statistically, the more likely reason they're acting out in school is something in school. Now, when I say that, many of you might say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it will seem like common sense to you, right? Well, it's not what they want teachers to think. It's not what they want the school climate to be about. We need to direct all of our focus as far as problem solving outside the school. It couldn't possibly be all of this focus on identity and race, and we're scrutinizing you, and please answer, are you non-binary yet? Like, we're prying into your life constantly. Couldn't be that. Couldn't be that you're not really learning to read as fast as your peers because that method doesn't work for, most children, because they're still using Fontes Pinnell or Look-See or whatever. And Lucy Calkins' method, it's not working. And you feel really bad about yourself because you're maybe one of 3 kids in the class who's just not progressing in reading, and you don't like it and you don't understand what's going on. And so you start acting out. But I don't see that there. And there are many other examples that can happen in school. Some kids being a jerk to you, etc. These are all at least as likely, if not more likely. Now, you might say, well, Deb, what about if you're teaching in a neighborhood where a lot of the kids come from single family homes, it's impoverished, etc. Okay, so your statistics might skew towards something outside the home. But the same educators who want us to believe that it's always something outside the home, or they want us to think about it that way, like have that front of mind, have also told us that school is a safe haven for abused children, that we can't, don't homeschool, because surely the only people who want to homeschool want to keep their kids home so they can abuse them. School is a safe haven. So they're not likely, if that's their mindset, they're not likely to perceive that it's something going on at school. It's always outside the school. So let's say no one at home speaks English and I don't have help. My mom can't pick me up from the sitter until late. Here's an idea. Ask. I know, revolutionary, right? It's totally revolutionary that the teacher might just stop at, I'm not going to judge my student as being character flawed, and I'm going to try to talk to my student and just say, hey, what's going on? I noticed that, you're having trouble paying attention and you've been talking out of turn. You've been, shoving people, whatever, like, what's happening? Do you need some help?
This is not, one of the ones.
Ooh, let me put on my social worker hat and think about all the things that could be going on and project things onto the child. Like, they're doing that more and more and more. And they're teaching teachers to be so on their lookout for problems at home and problems with parents and problems in society. They're finding them, but not real ones. They're like making them happen.
This is from Aperture. And when I first pulled our contracts, and I knew who Committee for Children and Second Step were. I did not know who Center for Collaborative Classroom. I do now. And I didn't know who Aperture was or how they all played into a part of each other. It's like one is the like data mining system. And so then that's how they all play a different part in putting the puzzle together for the SEL. But Aperture, this was from Aperture. And I looked at it and I was like, and knowing from having kids in this school and how involved I am in this county, how the behavior in high school has gotten so bad. So we talk about these research-based, is you find PBIS all over all this stuff, which was the foundation for all of this. And it's restorative justice. It's, nobody gets punished for anything anymore because there's always another reason they write off. And so when I read this, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're just going to assume that and that's why the whole thing about homework, grading homework for accuracy is racist, or grading or grading at all. Nobody should be held accountable. And that's what this is doing. And I can see
we're blaming families, but we're not really holding families accountable to help the kids either.
No, you're just not giving them an education. And they're not being taught how to be appropriate humans because you're making them question their parents, which I've encountered firsthand. Like, where did this come from until I understood this stuff? And then you're not teaching them anything either. You're just pushing them through so that your numbers look like equity's working. Right. And that's, I've had principals, teachers tell me that white children are being punished differently and held accountable for differently for students of color. That doesn't serve anybody, especially the ones that are going to grow up and have never been punished for anything. Because trust me, I grew up in this county, and being afraid of not turning my homework in, or that it led to me being an adult that respected authority, first of all, and so all of finding an excuse for every behavior a child does. I'm one of the parents that's like, can I opt out of that? And if my kid acts like an hole or talks back, can you please punish my child? Like, it's okay with me. Like, right. Can I opt in for that? Like, because
exactly,
it's only, and these are the people that are going to grow up to. I say round one is done, because this has been going on here in Chesterfield. James Lane did it as soon as he came in 2017. I found the first SEL contract. This is years before ARP, 3 years before COVID. It was already being done. Those kids are now in high school. And so we have fights at the worst high schools that they now talk about these underserved children. Well, we have 13 years of empirical data from when PBIS was brought in that it is still the most underperforming, and the behavior has gotten worse tenfold. Like, they've had 4 30 plus fights with so that all of that that's what I call evidence that it's not working. When you have 13 years of a program being implemented, and not only has it not gotten better, it's gotten worse. That is something that I would call evidence. Mm-hmm. Not, I can find one example from one school in the county, and therefore we're going to do it for everybody. And that's right. What's going on.
Right, exactly. And they really, there was a document that you found, in fact, where they actually say, they go so far as to say, we don't have evidence.
Oh, the Clearinghouse? It's green.
I want to find that one. So
I found, and you can find it in any of the ESSER manuals. If you look for Miguel Cardona's Clearinghouse, it's all over any of them. You click on that, and then it'll break it down, and it'll pull up for you almost every SEL program. And then I saw this one, and I said, does that really say that out of 35 studies, they found no evidence?
Right. I'm going to find it. It was right here. And I thought I downloaded that. And I know that I did. But for some reason,
I might be able to bring it up.
So many. Oh, here it is. I got it.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. What works? Clearinghouse, second step. This blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because there they are telling you, well, this is the Institute of Education Sciences. So this is something that, takes a look at what do they mean when they say evidence? No studies of second step that fall within the scope of the children classified as having an emotional disturbance review protocol meet What Works Clearinghouse evidence standards. The lack of studies meeting WWC evidence standards means that at this time, the WWC is unable to draw any conclusions based on research about the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of second step on children. Now, this is classified with emotional disturbance, but remember, they're treating all the children right now as traumatized from COVID. They're saying all the children have emotional disturbance and learning loss from COVID. They're using that designation to justify taking ESSER funds because those funds were designated to solve this crisis. Okay. So you might say, oh, but that's for just like every kid. That's right. That's exactly the point. So if you're telling me we have to do SEL and we have to pay these companies all this money and it's got to come from the federal funds because crisis of emotional disturbance, and then we come out here and there's 35 studies and nothing.
No. When I saw it, I was like, that's it. True narcissism, arrogance right there is that you can write something that you're going to say 85 documents that this money must be spent on research-based proven. And then you link the clearinghouse yourself that says it doesn't work. I was like, and I sent it to the county who had told me that they vetted second step and that they're full. No, what you did was you saw that everybody else is using them. And that was your evidence that it, but no, right here. And then here's the manual that Cardona sent out himself that says it must be evidence-based. And here's the link where he provided it doesn't work. What are you going to do now?
Right there in the manual, it says it must be evidence-based, provides a link to say it's not evidence-based.
Every other word in these manuals is evidence-based, 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 evidence. Right here, no evidence, not based. Like, right. What are you going to do? It's
definitely
like that
not
conversation we had last week. Is that once you have the damning evidence, what do you do with it? Because I've done what. Here you go. I got it right here. What else? Oh, so sorry about your luck. There's nobody to hold anybody accountable to save these children, and that's why I'm telling parents, get them out. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like.
Then they have, the study that does not meet their evidence standards, studies that are ineligible for review. Now, the reason these are relevant is that these are studies that have been used to justify these things, or they've been studies that have been done. But according to this, What Works Clearinghouse, it doesn't work. And this is also relevant because, to your point, Miguel Cardona refers to What Works Clearinghouse when you apply for grants. When your state applies for the grant to get ESSER funds, it tells you you got to choose from you got to look at the What Works Clearinghouse to make sure it's evidence-based. They're not.
No.
They're getting the grants. So then you have to say, who's reviewing the grant proposals? Because they're obviously not doing a very good job.
This is the same man that sent James Lane and every state superintendent the letter that said, I don't know if you violated Title VI, but you know what? Here's your $20 million or $200 million. Just make sure that you don't violate. Right, it's on you now, Virginia or North Carolina or wherever you are.
Before you came on, I said to people, I kind of did a quick summary of like people assume that the Department of Education is there to sort of make sure that at least they're giving out money to support equal rights, like to support equality of access and things like that. They're not even pretending to try. They're like, here, it has to be What Works Clearinghouse. It clearly tells you it's not there, but it has to be there, but no one's going to check, so it's totally fine. We're just a giant Borg, a bloated tick full of money, taxpayer money, and we give it out to our political friends and the people who will put things that we like into schools. So you know what? Your grant proposal is going to get approved as long as you use something derivative from CASEL. Because that advances our political agenda.
Like, but if somebody actually, and that's why I'm like, parents, we have a legal fund for a reason. Like, I can connect him from Virginia to, or from my county to Virginia to now he works under Miguel Cardona. Okay. Like, I don't know how else, like,
look at all this.
But I can guarantee you, if I did my researching, I could take all those studies and I could find, because the research that Committee for Children and Second Step currently have, review of research. I sent you this, and I was like 1982. Yep. 1982 is what they cited. So here, the Second Step research, they had one for like 5, but I was reading it, and I was just
Second Step. Yeah, here it is. I got it.
Review of research. But if you go down and you go through their,
is it this one?
Yeah, any of them that say review of research. If you scroll down, I was reading them and I was like 1997, 95. And I was like, you haven't done all the money that you gave and you get from the Bill Gates. You're saying your research. Now, most of the time, you know who their research is? CASEL. They will literally cite CASEL. I'm like, you can't cite CASEL as your research that this works. The people that fund you. Like, but and then I saw 96, 95, 94. Okay, I was 14. I was born in 80. If that's your research that something in 2022 is working when we didn't even have the internet then, but you're saying that this works because of a study from the 90s?
Then they tell you stuff that's like totally obvious. I love this one. It says, emotion management skills can be used for both positive emotions, for example, inhibiting the impulse to run excitedly in the hallway, and negative or distressing emotions, for example, inhibiting the impulse to hit another child who takes a toy or ball away. Children who can manage their feelings in emotionally charged situations are more successful in the transition to formal schooling. Really? Do tell. That's shocking.
I got to read this to you.
You had to do a research study to figure that out.
I was reading.
What does that have to do with SEL?
You know that, like, it was like 182 pages I sent you, and it was like both pros and cons, like possibilities and then problematics for SEL. And so I had to read it. And this woman put it. I took a screenshot because it was so perfect. What did she compare it to? She called it the marshmallow test, and she was like, "Hi."
Oh, whether they take the marshmallow right away?
Yeah, but she said because you can, not, I forget, but not eat the whole bag or the
impulse
whole
control.
Yes, impulse control.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. So when
that doesn't make you successful at anything because you can bite your fingernails and not make it. Doesn't mean that you're going to become a greater anything. It doesn't show that you like socially become more apt or. Okay, hang on one second.
There are so many factors going into impulse control, including neurological factors.
But yeah, I read that. I was like, the marshmallow test. That's perfect. But this was another thing is, Duckworth, they call her the Queen of Grit.
Yes.
I read an article by her, and this is what I say is that the Queen of Grit said, I feel absolutely awful because my opinion on grit is what she feels, and she owned it. She said, I am responsible for this, and it is wrong because what I meant it to be and what they ran with it to implement all of these skills. And I read an article by her, and I said, and I wrote school board last night, I said, when you have the Queen of Grit saying that what her intention and what they ran with, and what is that she feels responsible, and whoa, my bad, I shouldn't have done this. I said, more people, more anybody. It's humility. Is that these children are being harmed, and what I did, my bad, I didn't know. Like, is that's like highly evolved humans. Is that when you can be like, whoa, my fault. Like, that was not my intention.
Well, the same thing with the people who did
cover it up.
The people who did the implicit bias test, the original IAT, they then ran research on their own stuff and said, yeah, it just doesn't. It's like reading your horoscope. Like I mean, it's actually probably less accurate than that. So this diagram, which is a flashcard, guys,
this is a 4 through 8 flashcard.
4 through 8 flashcard for kids. This is false. Let me repeat, it is false. This is absolutely not a correct depiction of anything resembling reality. Your brain doesn't work that way. Your biases don't work that way. Your heuristics that you use don't work that way. This is not true. This idea of unconscious attitude, belief, or associated stereotype about an individual, first of all, every human being on the planet uses heuristics. Some people choose to like hang on to stereotypes and so forth, but every single human on the planet uses them, and we use them to survive. We cannot possibly look at everything brand new every time, including humans that we encounter. It is not something about our character or anything like that. So to describe our unconscious this way and to depict it as like we're so blissfully unaware of it and it's really more important than what's showing, also not true. Everything about this is just scientifically inaccurate. And they ran another test of their own IAT and said, it's junk science. It's bogus. You can't predict anything. It's almost
asking. So this would be like 10 through 14. Okay. You're telling that. So we talk about the damage it does to children is that when in the identity reformation is that the first phase, they're breaking down. There is no longer individual. We talk about collective. Right. Is that, so people say, what's the end game? Well, when you break down a child's identity and then you reform it with DEI, and then you tell them false historical information about where they came from, you're having one set of moral, social being taught, one set. By who? I don't know. Who's
the government?
Right.
The government.
Do they write you what? Do they ever give you
self-interested at all? No.
Do they ever give you an answer as to what? No, it falls under social awareness. It falls under self-management. But what does that mean? And I've read studies about SEL, people that are proponents of it, and their problem with it is that you cannot give a definition. Like when you can't give a definition or a study or research. So these are people that believe that, like, I think I sent it to you a couple weeks ago. I read the whole article thinking they thought about SEL the same way I did. And that's people being honest, is that I firmly believe in it, but it is extremely problematic because you cannot give a definition. You could not, it's like if you ask somebody, can you tell me what social justice is? Like, not opinions, but like if you can't define something, you certainly should not be teaching it to anybody.
Right. And then they even go so far, but they do try to define, but look how much emphasis. This is from Second Step Elementary and Second Step Middle School, produced by, are you ready? Learning for Justice, formerly known as Teaching Tolerance, has designed a robust set of lessons with direct instruction on identity. Hold the phone. Hold the phone. They tell us direct instruction for math is racist. Direct instruction for science is racist. Direct instruction of history is racist. Everything is inquiry. Students come alongside and we're going to co-learn. We're going to co-create our knowledge. And we're just going to, it's group. Okay. Until apparently we're talking about the student's identity. Then we're going to direct instruct you on your identity, but not the multiplication tables. Justice and action that complement and enhance social and emotional skills. Isn't that nice? They're going to teach you the identity you should have to complement your emotional skills. How nice of them.
But look, right there is CASEL.
Yes, it's right there. Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning is the nation's leading organization advancing the development of blah, blah, blah. Okay. But this is so important. And then they have what is Learning for Justice? Want to know?
I don't know if anybody has ever been there, but go to that site and read the article. Like, you don't even have to read them. You can just read the categories.
It's militant.
It is.
It's
100%.
Absolutely militant.
Mind-blowing.
A respected leader by whom? In the field of anti-racism and anti-bias learning.
Anti-racism.
Except for their biases and their racism. That's fine. Who work with children from kindergarten through high school. These resources include classroom lessons, webinars, grants, podcasts, policy guides. They're not elected, but policy guides and more. The lessons outlined in this chart enhance and support learning for justice, SEL work, and align with second step programs. We encourage you, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is their alignment. This is how we now, because remember, we said that the CASEL Second step, learning for justice, aperture, et cetera. They're all under there. And of course, they're all under DEI. But here's how they align all these different lessons. Look at K through 5. We have identity, diversity, et cetera, diversity. And some of the categories, let's see, explore the definition of family. Learn about different kinds of family structures and explore what makes their own family unique. So they're going to be sitting there asking the kids questions about their family. And you might think, well, that seems perfectly benign, except remember, they're telling them that they have to tolerate, accept, approve, validate, support, all kinds of different things. They're not just teaching them about. They're not just saying different people have different kinds of families. They're saying, and that's like particularly awesome. Okay. That's the difference. Examine themselves within various contexts, including family, culture, and community. So they're going to be teaching their kids about that sort of thing. Then we have self-awareness, diversity. They try to, wait, I almost forgot. Grades 3 through 5, action. We have justice.
Yeah.
Learn about dietary guidelines of various ethnic and religious groups and analyze the cafeteria's food offerings so you can wag your finger and say they are not ethnically just.
Right. But I get they're not wagging finger because it's not kosher. I bet you $1 million is that's not on their radar.
Nope, probably not. Probably.
But that's like, I think I sent you some screenshots, and when I just knew, like, the book The Giver, like everybody's heard, because that was my first what is this moment. Is that why
The Giver can actually be taught well. It just depends how they teach it.
It wasn't, I didn't even know what the book was. When I looked at it, that's when I started learning about dystopia. And I was like, well, I don't want my 11. But my problem wasn't even with the book. It was the fact that on a test on the book, for 25 questions on the book, that I gave you some, those. So that little one down there, that's the actual underneath, like down to the bottom.
That one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What feeling overwhelms Jonas? You can see above that, it asks, like,
where does it have it?
Any of them are good examples. You can pick one. So like 11, it'll say, what does Jonas confess about being apprehensive about? That's a book question. But underneath, they ask about, do you like your name? If you could change your name. But they ask questions about what rituals do you share in the morning? What rituals do you have with your family? I said, just ask her a question on the book. Why does every question on the book have to have 4 to 6 questions about
the kid?
And what did she answer? And they told me that she didn't answer them. I said, I want to see proof that she did not.
Well, then tell me about an innocent lie or white lie that you have told. Take me into your confidence, little child. I'm already assuming and projecting onto you that you've told lies, first of all. Now I want you to incriminate yourself and tell me something, and like take me, the teacher, the adult teacher, into your confidence. I want to violate your personal boundaries and be your little, come on, tell me, what's a little lie that you told? Now I can keep
how long, secret. Where's that going? When's it going to pop up again? And the thing is that on February 1st is when I found out about this. Now, the school told me, well, she didn't answer them. They weren't required. Well, can you show me that? Can you tell me? And they said, the teacher just said she didn't answer. I would like to see that, because I had not opted her out of anything at this point. But you're just going to tell me, oh, well, they didn't have to answer those. Well, I would like to see that. And I was told to FOIA it. What are you hiding?
FOIA it? Like you can't even answer the damn question?
$83 an hour, and the school board attorney who denied it to me is the man who does the FOIA for our school board and our school. You want me to pay $83 an hour for something you won't give me, that you're going to filter out, which you don't want me to see anyway? Yeah. But so this is what parents need to be aware, is that it's in everything. Like there are literal like math. I heard at the end of your last, it is in everything. It is in every single part. So when my daughter's principal told me, well, they teach it in Flex Block. Well, no, actually this curriculum, the actual is in gym. It's not in Flex Block. First of all, and here's second of all, it's in everything.
And this is I'm going to show you the plot summary of The Giver. And I'm going to just quickly tell you what it is, because it is actually a good book. It is very often used in middle school. Now, your daughter's 11.
One of them, yeah.
What grade is she in?
6th.
Okay, she's in 6th. So typically, most schools do it around 8th. 6th is a little early, if you want my honest opinion, because of the themes. I think the themes are.
I didn't know about the book, and I googled it, and I was like,
just okay. But
there's a big difference between 6th and 8th grade. Huge.
There is a giant difference between 6th and 8th grade. There really is. There's a big difference.
Like 20 and 40. Like
it's pretty big. But that aside, this is an excellent example of how you can take a book that's either neutral or good for students, and you can, through your teaching of the book, turn it into material for the purposes of indoctrination. You could do it, by the way, with the Declaration of freaking Independence if you wanted to. I mean, there's a way. It's creepy, but you could.
I saw it on Facebook where teachers were like, but I had a lot of teachers that I know when I first, because you don't Facebook, that I shared that. And there were teachers that were like, this book can be taught correctly. I taught this book correctly. But there were teachers that looked at it and they were like, they did what?
Well, because they're focusing on the child and they're prying personal information out of the child with the thinnest veil of justification that they're putting the child into the book. Well, that's another problem. One of the beauties of teaching literature is that you can discuss important themes. You can discuss different kinds of people and different situations or historical periods that are quite difficult to discuss, like Anne Frank's diary. But keep it at a safe emotional distance for the child, because you don't know what that child's emotional makeup is. You don't know what kind of trauma they've had. And it is not for you to assume they've had any either. So you should just take a neutral stance where you say, if the child has enough emotional distance that we're not placing them in the story, what would you do if you were trapped in the attic and locked away? You don't freaking do that.
Putting your family into this kind of.
What would you do if you told a lie? That is not. You don't even do that in college, because you don't know what traumas you're bringing up. So that for all the trauma awareness they claim to have, they're shoving kids into situations.
They're creating trauma. Like when you are consistently all day, the first thing you do when you walk into school, which is you can find checklists of your daily check-in for SEL, is that when how are you doing? What are your emotions today? That is literally what they're doing. And can you draw your emotion face? They give them a blank. What is your emotion right now?
Dude, like if somebody asked me every morning, that not just like a casual, like, how's your day? But if somebody was like, what's your mood today? If I walked downstairs every day and my husband said to me,
my mother,
tell me what your mood is. What's your mood? I probably would eventually punch him in the face.
Yeah, my mother every day. I'm 42, but how are you feeling? Are you feeling okay today? And I'm like, damn it. But to constantly have that put in your face, if you're feeling bad, all you're going to think about is how bad you're feeling. But that's what these kids, it's constant. Like I was telling my daughter,
kids hate to be asked.
My daughter believes that
how are you doing? How you doing?
Anxiety disorder. My daughter's 11 and she may have it because for an 11-year-old to believe, because she has been taught so much about anxiety before I could intervene.
Their status.
But it's 6th grade. Like every 6th grade girl, it's the worst year ever. So you don't have it's called 6th grade.
Right. Well, this is the plot of the book. Sometime in the future, an 11-year-old boy, so okay, it is an 11-year-old, named Jonas, lives in a seemingly perfect community in which there is little pain and little crime. People are polite. Everyone belongs to a supportive family. But this harmony comes at a price. There's also no choice, and real emotions are non-existent. Life is dictated by strict rules. A committee of elders matches spouses and assigns them children born from women whose only job is to give birth. The committee names all babies and chooses every person's career. Sex and love are prohibited. Being different is shameful. And families are dissolved when the children are grown. Everyone looks similar in skin color and dress. Okay, so we have a dystopian plot where everyone's the same and everyone's equal and everyone's okay, except for the giver who knows everything. But here's the thing. They're presenting a dystopian world.
It's like that one of those, is this a prophet?
And then they're putting the kid into that world and only highlighting the parts. If you notice those questions, they're only highlighting the parts they want them to feel potentially bad about. And they're not looking at the totality of this. Because think about this. You could teach this as a story of individual liberty.
Right.
I've seen the Giver taught that way, where it's like, how awful would it be? Is it better to exchange your liberty for your security? Let's have a talk about that. Would you can ask a kid that, because now you're up here. You're not at home in their personal life. You're talking about ideas. You're talking about big picture things. And an 11-year-old can talk about, like, would you rather be able to choose your own career or what you do in life as a job, or be told what to do, but like nobody ever gets hurt and everybody's fine? And you know what? You might get some kids who say, I want everyone to be fine, and that's okay. You can have that conversation.
Was part of that, and I have it memorized, because I was like, what in the world? They said, what is worse, physical or mental anguish? And I was like,
yes, I saw that question that you told me. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And not knowing anything about anything, I was like, what? How can you expect, like, what is the point? Like,
I hope they 11. Don't know how to answer that.
But I was like, not having read the book, but that wasn't one of the ones that jumped out at me. But now that I look back on it and I think of I'm like,
yeah, it's messed up.
I mean, maybe she had her tonsils out. I don't know, like, what physical. My daughter has rheumatoid arthritis, so I don't know. Like, but why would you, like? How do you even get an 11-year-old to answer that? Like,
I don't know.
They're
also obsessed with. They're also super obsessed with growth mindset.
Oh yeah, growth mindset. When she was little, I thought it was like growth mindset. You're either growing or you're I can't do this. It's just how my understanding. This is when I also thought that her coming home with a color of her performance, she was either green, and every day when she got off the bus, the poor thing. Now I look back on it and I'm like, did you get green today? Like, you didn't get green, like. But now I'm like, can you imagine like in kindergarten, like coming home with a color, and your color was your determination for your success for the day, like. They're fine. Like, but I was that mom because I trusted schools. Like, but now I look back and it's like, I talk to teachers about PBIS and they're like, I'm so tired of filling out those damn PBIS cards, because they're constantly evaluating these kids. And you're overlooking the kids that actually need social emotional help, because you're giving it to everybody collectively. That the ones, and this is what I tell people, get on the other side of the fence, understand that you're actually failing the ones that you're saying you're helping, because in focusing on the group who's not traumatized, the ones that actually may be pleading or needing help from the teachers who had in the past knew how to give it, and they didn't need rules for how to do it, because that's what part of being a good teacher was knowing when your kids actually needed help in certain areas. And that's why the good educators are leaving that I talk to, is they say, I can't do that anymore. I'm scared they're going to go home. I'm going to get written up. Because now this personal relationship they actually want, if you actually start to develop it, you become a target for, whoa, that's you crossed that little invisible line that isn't really there. We're going to say you crossed it. Like, but yeah. It's created such an unhealthy environment. That, I mean, talk about mass accident, like teachers.
Mass accident, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, what's more disturbing is the ones that are going to come in.
Right. Because they've been there, the pipeline have been trained that they are doing absolute good. This is just, you're like saving the world. They've been taught that these kids are oppressed, because if you read Paulo Freire, it's all about liberation. We now have liberation, ethnic studies, liberation, pedagogy, we've gone past. Some people are still in like, why is CRT bad? I'm like, oh, that's like last week. Yeah. Like, where last week, last year.
Stop calling it that, please. Like,
what?
I tell people, can we just use a different term, because it makes us look stupid? Like, I know what it is, but until you know what it is and how to argue it, like,
your big issue right now is that they are doing critical pedagogy. Critical pedagogy is everything, and basically it all falls under DEI. And why that's important is that DEI is the one thing that, whether you're right or left or whatever, blue or red, everybody goes, well, surely we need DEI. We just need a kinder, gentler DEI that isn't racist. I'm like, DEI is by definition racist.
In Virginia.
It is by
definition. No, I tell people, it's like when I speak and I give presentations, is that you have to understand what you're fighting. And you can't say, it's like, well, can you define CRT? Can you tell me how it's not, it's not, because you just say so.
Well, and then the problem is what
equity or inclusion actually mean.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was looking at this comment, And, this has been a big point of debate, CRT equals anti-white. And it is, of course, explicitly anti-white. It says so, right? But what's interesting is then you have people say, well, and I've said this, it's really anti-reality. It's racial essentialism. It's a lot of things, but it does single out and say that white people are oppressors. But you know what is like unequivocally anti-white? Like, don't anybody come at me and say it's not. Like, it's 1,000,000% crazy, scary anti-white is the ethnic studies programs in California.
We have one starting next year.
Explicitly like scary language, really scary language. And I really wish people say, well, that's California. No, it's not.
No,
it is spreading across the country. So I think they got us worked up with CRT, which is bad. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. And I was all over the place on the internet going, CRT, but things have progressed. And it's not, and it didn't just come up. This stuff is in the works years ago. It's just coming to the fore. It's coming to the fore. And they've been emboldened, the people producing these programs. And now when you look at the ones that are, liberation ethnic studies, my friend Ryan Staley, who was on the show just before here, and Kelly, they are deep into researching this. And so you guys take a look at their work, as well as I did a show on it with him. It's explicitly anti-white, and it's really frightening degree.
Our curriculum for next year came out, and I was like, why do we have a 303-page curriculum?
Yeah.
Okay. After we've just had all of this loss of learning.
Right.
The high school curriculum reads like my Virginia Tech entire 4 years to get my BA. It's like women's studies, sociology. I mean, but then it had ethnic studies. It has African literature, not African American poetry, and all of this like hip hop is literature. Okay, that was one. Ethnic studies, and I'm like, but these kids can't read. They literally.
It's okay. They're going to helpfully get them through the class through a series of movies on Netflix. The reason I'm not kidding. The reason I pulled this up is
that was from the kindergarten slideshow.
Yeah. Kindergarten slideshow. Look at the vocabulary. Flashcards. Uncomfortable emotions. Comfortable emotions. Ooh, body signals. These are flashcards. Yes, there are other ways of knowing.
The values. Yes. Whose values?
Right. These are values. Honesty, kindness, integrity, the guide our decisions. Now, some of it looks like all nice, but let me ask you guys something.
Identity. Like when it's like I'm adding to my list of buzzwords, like identity. Like it's like when you hear somebody say, "Let's bring you to the table." That's like NEA speak for cosine. Let's do some shadiness right here. Like, but go to the one with sunglasses. That's the best.
Okay. And the one with sunglasses?
Keep going, yeah. You'll pass some other ones that'll make you want to jump out before you get to the sunglasses.
Let's see if I can find the sunglasses. Well, what I wanted, this one? No,
there's like 4 pairs of sunglasses.
4 pairs of sunglasses. Okay. Yeah. The thing I wanted to say is, and I've recently been learning about this with my interviews with Dr. Nodia, the linguistics professor, that the reason this is so relevant with these little kids is that these words are not, it's not like dog, cat.
Ethics,
these are words that are so far ahead of this age group when it comes to what they can really comprehend on a conceptual level. And it is literally designed to brainwash them that these are the most important things I need to be thinking about all the time. And they're adult concepts.
But the evolution from these to the 4 to 8th grade, like here, there's fair. Oh, right here. Look at what it says. So remember the iceberg in the brain? Scroll up a little bit. So I don't know if I can't see it. I don't know if they can, but bias. There it is. But instead of the iceberg in the brain, which was the 4th grade to 8th grade, for kindergarten through 5th, they're teaching bias with sunglasses.
Right. And the implicit message is it's always bad to have a bias. But do you know how much safety is contained in the thumbs down and the exclamation point danger sign?
Stranger danger? Like, no, that's you can't have that.
You're supposed to have these biases against certain kinds of people for safety. This is teaching us to drop our guard, drop our boundaries, and the helpful adults hired by the government, will come in and tell us who it's okay to be biased against and not okay to be biased against. And then they're going to do it with things like ethnic studies. They'll be helpfully telling us it's perfectly okay to be biased against. So anyway,
it's like empathy. Who wouldn't want their child to have empathy? But what are they teaching? Empathy is if a boy is stalking you on the playground and you go tell your teacher that you want him because you don't feel comfortable, you're not
you mean like
being
my daughter
inclusive.
did?
Yeah,
like
and
my daughter did when she was told that she needed to be friends with him because we're all friends here.
Yeah,
in this school, we're all friends. Yeah. I did want to show, because we talked about data a bit, and so before I definitely don't want to.
Oh yeah, I've got.
You got to go to your dance thing, and I'm gonna go too. But
data, okay.
Hang on, let me bring this up.
So important. Like, okay, parents, I'm just going to tell you right now. So under FERPA, they'll talk to you about personally identifiable information, which is your social security number. So they'll tell you that your child is not giving, even if they were to admit they're collecting data, which when you have the contracts, it says right here, the county will give the vendor, third-party vendor, the contractor, the information. But it's not personally identifiable. What they don't tell you under FERPA is that when they type that little 6-digit code in, your student ID, that is personally identifiable information. So every time that your child logs in and puts that's personally identifiable information is one of the major things that, so they're tracking everything. It's going somewhere and they won't tell you where is the 100%. But yeah, go through this. I found this on this really cool, I'll give you guys the site, but it goes like all the way through about all the ways they track.
And they were talking about your preschooler here. Like as soon as you register them for any kind of interaction with the state, they are registered, and all their personal information, their gender, their date of birth, social security number, health info, immunizations, everything is going into a system that is owned by the government. That, we don't know who else they're giving access to it. Then it's uploaded to the district's online database that's maintained by an out-of-state company that stores all the data in the cloud, where I'm sure it's perfectly safe.
But it's in America, is what like our contracts say, is that's supposed to make us feel safe, that it's somewhere in America. Oh,
do you know what else is in America? The giant data farm for the NSA is in America. I feel so much better. Okay. Yeah. The school will send much of the information electronically to the State Department. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm about to say State Department, the State Department of Education, to track Tommy's progress through school in this statewide longitudinal data system. Researchers and policymakers often use this data.
Wait, let me just real quick. Okay. So I did not know what a statewide longitudinal did until I read
that's like
in the VDOE. And I found where James Lane signed up for it. Again, James Lane. And I found they got money for it. I think 48 out of 50 they signed up. Hey, sign here, we'll give you money. And this is another thing. If we can do statewide, state longitudinal, which means we're gonna the whole life that this child sign up, we'll give you like $1 million. Okay, here you go. But in 2017, the OIG, the Office of Inspector General, did an audit of all of this stuff on data safety. There were 3 states, Virginia being one, that failed the VDOE. So Stephen Staples in 2017 was the superintendent of public instruction for the state of Virginia. And so the Office of Inspector General at the federal level wrote him a letter and said, we were able to hack pull. You failed all 7 areas of data safety. And he writes him back and he's like, well, we didn't receive money, and pretty much told the OIG to go shove it. And there was no follow-up information after that. And so that might seem like 2017, that was 6 years ago. But still, the fact that they failed every way under this statewide longitudinal. So essentially, the federal government was able to hack into the VDOE and get every child's information. That's what they mean by failed every way possible. And so is that you have to so when they talk about, that's what a statewide longitudinal study is.
And that's, most parents might get to this point and say like, well, okay, I don't love it, but whatever. But now we get to, before Tommy arrives in the classroom for his first day, his personal information is shared with various companies that provide services to the school and district.
They'll call them school officials. And so any reasonable parent will say, oh, so the principal, the people that work for the county, that's a school official. No, 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 no. People have to understand the contractors are school officials. The third-party vendors are school officials. Parents don't know because we have been driving with our eyes closed. We have been raised trusting like humanity. They don't think that somebody other than an employee of the county or would be considered a school official. So you don't think to go, well, what's your definition of a school official?
Right. And now he's got an ID card and an online lunch account, and there's Google G Suite for education. So Google knows all about little Tommy. And on his way to school, his location is tracked on a little chip that's in his technology or on the bus itself. Then he's got
badges.
Yeah, he's got RFID chips on his ID card. If he logs in on a smartphone or tablet to connect to the Wi-Fi while riding on the bus, his login and browsing information may be tracked by the internet provider and the school district.
That's why my daughter's is turned off. Bonk from bonk, bonk, bonk. Out the door, in the door.
And guess what? If he speaks out of turn in class, his teacher's going to put it in Class Dojo. You know, I used to get the ratings of everything my daughter did on Class Dojo every day. And I remember being absolutely horrified.
But you know, the cameras, they are now, and I've got to find the proof, but I read about 15 studies the other day. The cameras are reading their facial expressions and how often they click the mouse and how fast they click the mouse. That's how frightening this gets. When I read it, I was like,
on the Chromebooks they're giving them?
Yes, they are reading their face, their facial when they have to answer their hold on one second. Okay. But yes, that's how my mind, I was like, can my mind get any, and how fast they click answers. And not just like, it makes sense that they would, when they Google, because they can Google, because how else would they type in and find what drugs are in my house if they weren't allowed to Google. But
and that's the climate surveys. School climate surveys, SEL surveys, surveys measuring personal beliefs and political views. This stuff is going into their data cloud. Okay, I know we gotta wrap up because Mama has to go do Mama things. But I'm going to I'm trying to think where we can put this little toolkit that I have here.
I have it. Is that the infographic that I did that's really long?
This is from
the parent toolkit. I did an infographic. I don't know how you want it, but
well, this is fine, a PDF. I just want to be able to put it someplace that people can access it.
Yeah.
So
well, our website will go live, and this will be on there on Friday, and it'll have all these resources that I've been talking about, all the manuals. I mean, it's going to be everything that I could have ever hoped if I was trying to get involved would have been.
Yeah.
But I got into a badge because right before they unmasked the kids, I had gotten a report from the elementary school my daughter went to. She wasn't there at the time because she was in 6th grade. That she said they're doubling down on contact tracing. Now they're not only not getting rid of it, they're doubling down. This was a nurse at Evergreen. She said, and they're giving them badges to contact trace them. The same day, they all come home with badges to get on the bus, to get off the bus. I said, they've done it all year. And parents wanted to argue with me. I said, a nurse just told me this the same day that these kids come home with these badges right before they unmask the kids. You can do what you want. Your kid's still going to get fed. They're still going to get their books. They're still going to get on the bus and off the bus fine, just like they have all this time. But what you do with the information I give you, but right here, it's the first time I ever saw that. See right there, the bus, get on, what you eat, what books you check out. What's the big deal? It's keeping my kids safe.
It's keeping my kids safe.
Yeah, no. They think that because listen.
However, did we make it to adulthood without the government monitoring our every eyeball, like blink and mouse click? We didn't have mouse clicks, but our every bite of food. Oh my God.
I mean, my mom used to put me in the car at 18 and send me 4 hours up 81 to Virginia Tech at 18 in a little hoopty Honda to go to college without a cell phone. And I survived.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
it's crazy. Like, so most parents, when they go, oh, they're giving them brand new Chromebooks, I'm like, they're spying on your children. And the answer,
they're putting new software in. Like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, the question that came up here, somebody said, has anybody tried to classify SEL as domestic spying. I wish, but it is in many cases, depending on the questions on the questionnaire, it can be a violation of your child's rights. Yes. So the PURPA is a thing. Now, I say that knowing full well that you can report all day long.
There's COIPA, there's COPA, there's COIPA, there's about 8 different internet but you have to be able, again, once you find, even if you, I have the evidence.
It's enforcement.
For all of this.
It's enforcement that's the problem.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up with the OCR. It's the federal government. Do you think that they give that I was denied access under PPRA?
No.
That's why the school board attorney who a decade or 2 decades ago, or even maybe last year, would have lost his job and been disbarred by now for the amount of blatant falsifying that he's done, that parents have got. I mean, I'm talking copious amounts of data. The SPED parents have got but
yep.
That's where we're at is besides, okay, pull your kids out. Yes, that's what we can do, but to keep them safe. But then from there, it's like, well, you know what? How about next week at the school board meeting, more than 5 of us show up, because it's exhausting to get reports all day long about what's going on in your kid's school, or the teachers are even more exhausting. Oh, and here's, I'm just going to tell you what my principal did today that violates every child in the school, but I'm not going to do anything about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, guys, we will be back again, right?
Yeah, because there's these things called, there's the Second Step even put out a matrix, and it tells you by state what you're eligible, here's basically how you can use your grants and what you can use to buy SEL with. Now, it's not just ARP. They list crazy stuff I had to look up that, and it tells you by state if you got it, how much. Yeah. So I did. I found out how much Norm Oliver, who was the head of the Virginia Department of Health, got. For VDH has it, and they'll tell you how much they got to adopt this comprehensive sexual education. Guess what the federal government paid? You got to look in the VDH, not the VDOE, for that kind of stuff. But yeah,
there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, okay.
Why can you buy SEL for kids who need it for disabilities, who you want to talk about underserved children? And I know that Virginia can't be the only one that the IDEA money, if you need to start spending proper money on aides, or having actual special instruction and ed instructors.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense to me. $346 million specifically for special needs kids to get SEL.
No, that's the money they get for IDEA, but you can use it for SEL. They're telling you how to manipulate.
But that's what I'm saying is I think it's safe to assume they're not taking $346 million and hiring some more special needs aides.
They're not.
No, I can tell you, they're sending it to their buddies at, Second Step and Panorama and everybody else to make sure that the special needs kids have the right attitudes and the right views.
But they broke it down by state and what you're eligible for to say, hey, those kids with individual disabilities, that money there, you can use that to SEL. You don't have to spend it on those kids who need, say, to have their diapers changed, or don't
need a braille reader, or
IEPs, right? Yeah. Or sign language, because yes, those people are going to cost more money, but guess what? The federal government gave you that money, and that's what we've been asking here. Where did that money go? Oh, now we know where it went, because there's millions each county got for IDEA under the ESSER money that we don't know where it went.
All right. Well,
you
Mama,
just did 2 huge shows, and but like I said, Friday, the VirginiansForChildrenFirst.org will go live, and it will have more info than you know what to do with. But all I ask is that when I give you 15 links to report things and people, and you can even report teachers, your school, fill out a form. I don't care, job form. It's all going to be there, because accountability. I don't care who it is.
Well, and people in other states, this will be for Virginia, but people in other states, y'all
no,
need to like.
no,
Look
it won't just be it'll.
Oh, won't?
No, it's gonna be all the federal stuff too, like PPRA,
Perfect.
how you file a PPRA OCR complaint, how you do blah 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 blah.
All right. Well, so we're gonna have to
federal and state. So
when it's up, we'll also include it in our stream to like show people and make sure they go there and stuff like that.
Yes.
All right. So we'll be back next week.
Yep.
Right. Same bat time, same bat channel. No.
We'll figure out like what level of. Why don't maybe just ask people like what they have questions, because I feel like.
Oh, is there? No, are we done? Are we done?
Oh no.
Oh,
right now?
Okay.
Or forever?
No, I meant with the series. Did we do enough?
Oh,
okay.
I literally like until my grandchildren is how this like we didn't get back to the NEA, like mind blown, like
I feel like your
I have to wear them like an alien. I think I do, because I feel
like you're tuning in to,
No, it's because I think my eardrums are in the wrong place or something.
Yeah.
But I've always had to wear my AirPods like that.
Fine.
But no, like there's it's like there's UN put out COVID ESSER manual. The good old Hunt Institute. Woo, Javid's favorite Javid Siddiqui at the Hunt Institute. I mean, there are manuals. Committee for Children put one out that says the same thing.
How much do I love you, Ego Brain? Thank you.
No, he's the one I'm always like, Ego Brain, I will learn how to tag you one day. But like this is the CASEL and Committee for Children COVID.
So all this stuff is going to be on the site, right? All this kind of stuff. Okay.
Yep. And it's got but anybody, my Facebook is public and I share this stuff left and right.
Yep. EA Warrior Mom, go follow her.
Yeah.
So we'll be back next week. If you guys have questions, put it in the comments below. Please like, share the video so that other parents can see this, because this applies to everybody. It's everywhere. And I thank you guys for coming. Thank you so much, Anne, for all this like amazing hard work. And we will see you guys next week. Have fun at dance class.
Bye, guys.